Welcome back to Get a Grip on Lighting. This is the second of our finale series. Greg and Michael here. Get a Grip on Lighting 2017 to 2025 coming to an end. Always a pleasure being a part of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, Greg, NAILD.org.
That's right. We are a part of them. And you guys should be too if you are a lighting distributor. Get in.
Get in if you have light bulbs in a warehouse. I put Greg on the spot right there with that one. I usually never do
That's good.
and, and of course, it's brought to you by a great nailed vendor, Baron Lighting, BaronLTG.com, Greg Ehrich.
Yeah, so Baron Lighting Group, that means they're more than one lighting section. They have Exotronics, Trace Light, Specialty LED, and Grow Light. Now, they're a company that's relatively new to sponsoring with Get a Grip, but somebody that's been around a long time. I think the inventor of the exit sign, or one of the top, original LED exit signs at least. So anything exit emergency related, they've got. With Trace Light, they've got all the industrial and everyday lighting products you need as well, and just a great overall company. So we really appreciate their sponsorship and support over the past couple of years with them, and wish them all the best. But if you're a lighting distributor or lighting person, you need to know about Baron. You need to go to their website. You need to check it out.
BaronLTG.com. And we have the hosts of the Lighting Controls podcast with us today, Greg, Webster Marsh and Ron Kuszmar. But before we go to them, I actually went and did a little research for this show. And, there's some interesting timelines here. And I was introduced to Webster Marsh on December 16th, 2021. Because we were planning, remember the conversation series, Greg, we did where we gave Henrik Clausen a show. He did 6 or 10 episodes. And we were looking to expand into areas that we thought we couldn't cover right.
You're right. I do, yeah. That was 21, you said?
2021.
Okay, yeah.
And we launched them in 2022. And, Henrik loved it, but he wasn't interested in going any further. But it's interesting. I spoke to Webster Marsh on December 16th, 2021. By January 6th, 2022, he had his first podcast with Ron Kuszmar. And by September 30th, and they did their series on Get a Grip on Lighting. I don't know if you remember that.
On the Get a Grip site?
Yeah, it was like a series. Yeah. So we put them out on our feed to our people. And they did 6 series. And by September 30th, they launched their own podcast, the Lighting Controls podcast. And we put, I don't know if it was a dozen or a half a dozen of those shows on our feed. And we invited the lighting community to follow these guys. And the rocket ship took off. So welcome to Get a Grip on Lighting, Webster Marsh and Ron Kuszmar. It's so great to see you guys again and to watch the growth over the last couple of years. I'm going to go to you first, Webster. What was it like, the journey from December 16th to today?
I mean, it's hard to even think back to that time because, we were just out of the pandemic. I was basically going a bit freelance, but I was just trying to fan out and see what was going to catch. And this opportunity just kind of landed in my lap thanks to Tom Butters, a colleague of ours, and the Lighting Agora, which I owe a lot of gratitude towards because they allowed this to happen. And ultimately, from that point, it just kind of felt like stepping on a running treadmill. It was like you either keep up with it or you get slingshot off of it. And so we just kind of stayed on and we're still seeing how far it's going to go, but it's been an amazing ride.
And Ron, you were the first guest on the first episode, and I was listening to it, and I'm like, these guys got to be a duo, because you had two opposite ends of the industry. You had Ron, who's right on the front lines of day-to-day managing people's lighting control systems, and you had Webster, who's deep into the education and the protocols and how things are going to work out at the higher level. So Ron, what was it like in the first episode, and then when we approached you to be the co-host? What was that?
Yeah.
What was that process like for you?
it was, I mean, being asked to be a guest on the first one, right? Like that was just, it was fun, right? I was like, oh, this will be fun. This will be an interesting thing to do. Never really done this before. Like, why not? Let's see what happens. I at least, Webster and I have a little bit of history together. Like, yeah, this will be fun. Let's do it. And then it was after that episode when you guys had all reached out and with the idea of being a co-host, and it just completely caught me off guard, right? Because it was never planned. It was never part of any plan at all, right? It was completely off the cuff, out of the blue after that first episode. And it just kind of took off, right? We did those few episodes together, and then very quickly, right? I mean, quickly, with what, 8-9 months or so, right? It was a full blown show, and we spent some time over the summer getting everything ready. But yeah, it was a trip, just those first few months, and seeing how this progressed from just being asked to be a guest on a show to being a co-host, and now here we are 3 years later, and wild.
Ron, your story is very much like mine. I didn't want to do this.
Really?
I don't even know if I was a guest. I think he just called and said, "You're
Episode
coming on
2.
and helping me."
Episode 2.
What am I doing? What's a podcast?
I love it.
And now it's whatever it is, 8 years later. But
wow.
So, Webster, did what was your role prior to doing this podcast in the industry again, and has that changed because of the podcast? What you do now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess right before the podcast, I had gone freelance and started my own company. But right before that, I was working for HLB Lighting Design. I was a lighting designer and who had a penchant for lighting controls. But at that time, lighting controls still seemed sort of like this lofty idea of doing it as a job. And that's why I kind of stepped out on my own, because I felt that there was a lot of opportunity. And I learned very quickly that opportunity was not for somebody who was freelance and looking to help with lighting controls design. But as a result of the podcast, I would say that there, at least from my perspective, the conversation around lighting controls has really evolved. And I don't know if it's a direct result or if it's an indirect result, but it seems to be that it is a more serious topic of discussion than back in 2021 was. And so as a result, I feel like Ron and I are kind of part of this conversation and helping facilitate it, maybe not guiding it, but at least contributing to its direction. And I think overall, my career has really taken a strange direction that I didn't anticipate. I anticipated doing like one-line diagrams and written specs all day long. And instead, I'm doing a lot of more education, which is great. I love it. I love teaching. And so it really is unexpected and wonderful direction that my career has taken thanks to the podcast.
That's awesome. And Ron, were you working at Port when you started the podcast?
Oh yeah. I've actually been here for 18 years, so I've been here for a hot minute.
Whew.
Yeah. So how has that affected your daily job? I think pre-podcast and post.
Yeah. So
whatever.
It's so I do like to also do education. The education I was doing was very different from what Webster was doing. A lot of what I was doing was working with high schools and students and teaching them on their lighting systems, or working with end users directly on their like color changing lighting systems, right? So now the education stuff that I've been pulled into and roped into is much sort of broader, right? We're really starting to get into some of the higher level, lighting, controls design conversations, just helping people with just even the basics, and not just focused around theater, right? We're focusing around lighting controls in general. But like Webster said, being able to be part of the conversation now, we've opened up the doors to so many different people across the industry who never would have talked to each other. And we've opened so many doors for other people now that, like Webster said, that communication is constantly growing, and we're hearing more and more feedback of groups who weren't working together before, who are now, and communicating, and how can we make the industry better, and what can we do to eliminate as many of these silos as possible to really help move the industry forward. And I feel like this platform has given us that ability to just sort of help move things forward. And let everyone see that we don't have to be siloed all the time. We don't have to be frenemies, right? Like we can all get along and do this together
Right.
and move things forward.
Yeah,
No, and to
I
hop
think.
on that,
Oh, go ahead.
basically, one of the things before the podcast that I just, said to a colleague of mine is like, I wish I could just stick a microphone in the room while I'm chatting with colleagues and just
Totally.
put that on the internet,
Totally.
because that was the conversation. It was like all these like behind closed doors chatter. And so we just kind of put it front and center and said, everybody should hear this because it's important. And so that dialogue has grown, like Ron alluded to. So having this platform really not just empowered us, but empowered our colleagues to be able to feel more comfortable talking in a more general way about lighting controls just to anybody, which I think a lot of people were very closeted about.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, Ron, too, you brought up that it brings people together, and that's what I've always
Yeah.
liked about even ours is like, I knew some lighting designers, I knew some specifiers, whatever different parts of it. I know a lot of distributors, but I didn't know a lot of these other people, and then being able to talk about it, we're all thinking and doing the same things, just a little different, tweak to it, but that's really what it's about. So I'm glad you guys had that same experience for sure.
I gotta make a note here. So you guys are paid podcasters. Hang on a second here. Okay. Right. So most people pay to podcast, right?
Right.
They pay to do it. They don't get paid to do it. And I always recognize with Greg from day one that if we're going to make this sacrifice, if we're going to be doing all this time and creative energy towards doing a podcast, it can't be about my ego. I got to get paid to do it. You know what I mean? I can't be paying to do this. And so we showed you the model of doing that. And now you guys are paid podcasters. That is an amazing achievement, Webster and Ron. My hat's off
For
to you
sure.
guys. It's very difficult to do that. Most people can't do that. The other thing that I just saw when I was just heard when I was listening to you was the description of what is nonprofit work, right? So when people, like you said, in these different silos, frenemies, and all this kind of thing, this is why we have associations, so that people from different parts of the industry can come together and have open dialogue that is, maybe not recorded, but it's amongst an industry group. And so you guys had talked about in the beginning about possibly starting, some kind of association. Webster, are you guys any closer to that? How many people are we talking about would potentially join? Just fill me in on where your
Yeah,
head's at.
we are actually much closer now. We even have we're working on the mission statement and the bylaws for that organization. And the goal of that organization is to be that conversation centerpiece, the way to connect everybody together. Because as you noted, yeah, the nonprofit organizations are a great middle ground for everybody to meet on equal footing. But a lot of the lighting organizations keep lighting controls as sort of like an auxiliary. It's like a tack on. It's not really a central focus. And so the lighting control specialists, while they'll find their niche within those organizations possibly, they still are kind of put off to the side. I mean, you register for education, for instance, there's not a checkbox for integrator.
Yeah.
And that right there says paragraphs about the perspective of the industry.
What I always liked was when Greg and I got nailed to be a checkbox at Light Fair. Greg, remember that was like a huge victory, dude.
That was the hardest thing. Yeah.
Right.
Oh my goodness! Just can you put us on the list with all the associations, please, please? Could you really do that for us? That we would not other. We don't want to be other, right?
Right.
When you're, I think that. Just thinking about, I think you guys have to let anybody in your association, maybe different kinds of members, or like types of members, like Ron's an integrator, this guy's a whatever, and this guy's a whatever, but everybody's the same equal member of the association. and maybe you limit the percentage of one type that can join, like manufacturers that have more money than other members or whatever. But yeah, you guys, if you bring the industry together now the time is now, and the people are you.
For sure. Yeah.
So, Greg.
Yeah.
No, we're planning on doing that by having different memberships for it and different resources available to those different memberships. But I think to your point, yeah, we do want to make sure that everybody feels equal, at least if they're sharing sort of the same organization.
Yeah. How many podcasts have you guys done?
I think we're up to 122 now that were released.
That sounds about right.
122. Okay. What kind of frequency are you plugging at now? I mean, I kind of know the answer, but let's tell everybody.
We're at one a week.
Yep.
1 a week.
The most 120 was just posted, but maybe by the time this goes live, it'll be 122. We've already recorded 122, I should say.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's not including the conversation series. So that's just the Lighting Controls podcast.
Yep. And how do you feel on topics and guests? Are you running out? Or you got more? Or is there?
There's always more.
It's wild. And that was one of the things we talked about early on. Like, are we going to get to a point where we're just recycling content? and even though we've had this, multiple people on multiple times, every conversation is different. And every time we think we've, gone through something, someone has a different story, a different side, a different angle of that exact same vision. Right. So there's just so many ways to look at things and talk about it. I don't know as controls continue to evolve, I don't know that we will ever run out of things to actually discuss with people. And it's just, which is wild to me, because I never would have thought about that. I assumed like, we get to 100 episodes, that'd be amazing. Like, is there that much to talk about? And every time we have another show, it's like, how have we never talked about this before?
Right. And I think for me, it's kind of comical that we get guests when we invite them on. They're like, how am I going to fill 45 minutes of time? And it's like, oh, don't worry about that. We'll fill 45 minutes, if not more. Like, it's almost like a 45-minute episode is too short in some cases.
Got to cut it off when you get that far, right? No, that's good. You guys always have I'm frozen here. You always have a guest.
I like you. I like it when you look frozen like that.
It's actually a good frozen shot you have.
Yeah, that's kind of good. Maybe we keep it that way.
Sometimes it catches you when you're like, and then it's just like, oh, okay, that's not a good freeze frame.
I'll get reconnected here, but what was my question? The number of podcasts you have, and you always have a guest. You guys never just do one on the two of you.
We've done a couple where it's just the two of us.
Okay. Yeah, that's something Mike and I started doing some of, and sometimes that's good. Maybe keep that rolling that way.
No, totally. I think for the ones that we do, the two of us, it's either when a guest like randomly drops out at the last second and we need to fill a slot. But there's also like times where it's like, this is really important to talk about at this moment, and we need to record an episode now about it. And so we'll hop on and do a one-on-one. And I think the last one is just sort of like if we hit a milestone that we want to remark on, like I think when we hit our 100th episode, we had like a one-on-one with the two of us or something. So I think, we try to make it special.
Yeah, I think it's good every once in a while to do like a recap episode without a guest, where we can kind of talk about the things we've been discussing, right? And have that sort of discussion between the two of us, because we've been told that people do want our opinions on things, and a lot of times we let the guests talk and don't necessarily offer opinions. So every once in a while, it's good to be able to do that and offer our opinion and insight on things.
Sure. Is there one podcast that stuck out to you guys over the years?
It's a good question.
I hope I don't get asked it, because I don't know how to answer it.
I don't either.
Yeah, I mean, they're all so unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been a lot of really good conversations, and there have been so many that it's every time you have one, you're like, oh man, that was so good. And then 2 weeks later, you'll have another one. You'll be like, oh, that was just as good. So it's tough to really pinpoint an individual show that was like, wow, that was a really defining moment or something.
Yeah.
You know, we certainly have guests that we love to have on, just I say because of their energy, right? They're fun to
Yeah.
talk to. They're energetic. They keep things moving and keep things light. And certain people are just amazing human beings.
Yeah.
For
Have you ever
sure.
not been able to release one after you
Ooh.
recorded?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
That we have an episode that still gets talked about today. And I'm not going to go into the gory
No.
details of it, but
Me
yeah, I
too.
mean,
Yeah.
there's an unreleased episode that would be great to one day dust off and maybe get that guest back on. But as a result, you know, we actually ended up with a rewrite in our contract because of the
Oh.
fact that we had gone so far into the deep end on a subject that the contract got revised to say you can't talk about that anymore. And so, yeah, it was a very heated discussion in the background around that episode.
Well, I know which one would be my favorite then. Be that one.
For sure.
I could get you a copy. I can get you a copy.
No.
So I've heard a lot of talk about like evolve and as lighting controls evolve and as they evolve and as they evolve. How long do you think it's going to take for the smoke to clear? Can't evolve forever, Webster. Sometime at some point it has to settle down and become normal.
Well, I think there's definitely ebbs and flows. And so, you know, right now we're reaching a peak interest from the wider community, and maybe we reach a threshold where we either have widespread adoption of an open protocol and everybody kind of settles back down, or some kind of technological innovation just kind of levels the playing field for everybody, like maybe Matter from Google takes over. But we might hit a lull, and that happens, and that has happened in the past. We saw massive movement when Dolly first came on the scene, and then that kind of tapered out. And even before that, when we had like time clock and relays, like there was huge surge in interest in lighting controls, and then it tapered out again.
That's what I call the lighting controls boom bust cycle, Greg.
Right.
That's what I
Yes,
have a
yes.
name for that.
Right.
But the what was the next thing I wanted to ask you? I had it in my head. Oh, I'm drawing a blank here, Greg, on Get a Grip on Lighting. Can you save me? I can't remember what I was going to ask. He's gone. I had a question for Ron. It was, that's what it was about. So if things in the lighting industry, we started off when LEDs were absolutely at their hottest. And now, like, there's a lot of negativity about LEDs in the marketplace. I had a customer come in the counter with a box full of flat panels, and he dropped them on the counter, and he's like, da 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 da. I bought these from you. I said, the company went out of business. They're bankrupt.
Yep.
That company doesn't exist anymore. I'm sorry to tell you that. I know. He's like, and none of these clips fit together properly, and I can't switch it. I have to rip out the whole driver. Like, there's a lot of like downstream pollution from the hysteria of LEDs. I would say that you guys are going to see something similar in the next 3 to 5 or 6
I think you
years.
already have. I think controls already has, maybe more so in some cases where they've gone completely out. Like a lot of lighting stuff you can kind of transfer, but controls you can't without changing the whole damn thing.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the hard part with everything being so proprietary, right? Is there are certainly certain manufacturers who are great at what they do, and they're around, and they're still around, and they're able to support their product for years and years and years. And then you have those other manufacturers who have been bought or sold or went out of business or whatever, and you can't get parts. I mean, just look at what happened with the whole Incilium thing, because everything was on that Windows server. I mean, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
That start a whole ton of chaos for them, for the size of the projects they had and everything else. So it's tough because we're so proprietary, and the problem is, I don't know that the problem is controls, but the problem is not just controls. The problem is manufacturers are not looking backwards, right? So we've got a ton of people who say, no, I want wired. I want 0 to 10. It's what I'm comfortable with. It's what the electricians know how to install. But there is a huge push to digital. digital, or your fixtures are already digital. So there's a huge push to digital communication across the board. More manufacturers are doing it, which is forcing the controls to just really go that road, which a lot of them already do, right? They handle everything. But there's a big push. And I think the fixtures themselves are really going to be what pushes the controls here. And then it's utilities, right? Like rebates are gone for LED fixtures. We're into controls rebates, and now we're getting into whole holistic building control and all that integration. And there's, we're in carrot and stick phase, right? And once we get to just stick phase, things are going to happen.
Right.
The do you think that one of the problems in the controls discussion, and I know this to be a case with LED lighting, do you think that the utilities are way too loud or powerful a voice with respect to controls, and that perhaps because they're paying so much money in these rebates, that they're actually funding this? And is their influence outsized? Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't be at the table and discussing things, but are they, like, they were such a powerful stakeholder in lighting, and a lot of problems came from that. And I wonder if it's part two with lighting controls, where they're influencing things in a way that doesn't really make sense.
I think the problem is that you can't apples to apples lighting fixtures and lighting controls. The reality of the situation is that the utilities can market lighting controls, hyper incentivize lighting controls all they want, but the contractors and the end users need to take advantage of those rebates and those incentives to adopt that. And we still haven't seen a rush towards lighting controls, even if the LED rebates are stripped out, because LED fixtures, you just swap them one for one, you're done. Lighting controls, it's not so easy to do that. You can do that with triple LC to a degree, but there's still that programming, that knowledge, that awareness of how lighting controls works that is a massive barrier to people adopting.
I have a solution for the utilities. I have a solution. In the old days with lighting, Michael and Greg would be in the same market, and the rebate would be a certain amount per proven kilowatt of load reduction. Remember engineered rebates, Greg?
Yep.
And so the better lighting guy you were, the more rebate you could get for your customer. And then an engineer from the utility would come out and measure, and you had to prove that the customer paid for the whole project and that you disposed of the mercury lamps properly. And there was a whole list of things that you had to do in order to get the rebate. And you had to prove it to the utility. And so that was a legitimately amazing conservation demand management program. It actually worked. It delivered. Sure, there may have been some burnouts here and there, but overall it was 85% effective in reducing load on the grid. The utilities switched to labels. They switched to rebates for labels, DLC. Okay?
Right.
And all of the rebate programs for lighting controls I've seen, none of them are engineered. And lighting controls is the most obvious place to do engineered rebates.
Right.
You understand what I mean? Like, that's even better than lighting. It's like the most obvious place to do it.
The challenge is they've trained a generation of vendors to just apples to apples sell light fixtures instead of thinking through the systems, measuring the data beforehand. You know, a lot of the lighting controls rebates that happen retroactively because they're like, oh, we could have done a rebate, so now we got to get on the phone with the utility and say, hey, we just put this project in, can I still get those rebates? So that data's gone. If they were going to measure it, they would.
If you do an engineered rebate program, the best lighting controls guys will win, and they'll teach lots of employees how to do it, buddy.
No disagreement whatsoever.
Yeah.
Just like Greg and I did for 15 years, and then they went to all label-based rebates. So now your knowledge and your understanding, your ability to commission lighting controls is out the window. All you need to know is that it's on this list. That's a bad way to do it. They should do it with engineered rebates if they want to have success, and then the best lighting controls guys will always win. And that's what you want. You don't want a level playing field among expertise. You want to maximize the guys that have the expertise.
you don't have lighting controls guys involved in these projects to begin with. You don't even have lighting guys involved in these projects for most of the part. It's just a vendor,
we've been
somebody who
hearing.
goes, I can sell flat panels.
Right.
Yep.
They don't even
But if
think
you
through
want
the
to get them
photometry.
involved, make the incentives work for them. Like if you want
For sure.
the good lighting people
Yeah.
to get involved in this and learn about it and get better and better and better at it, make proven performance the thing that gets rebated. And you'll all of this will happen. That's my take anyway. My 2
Yeah,
cents.
no, I mean, it's a fair take for sure. And it would be awesome to see that happen.
All right. Well, guys, listen, Greg, I mean, it's pretty unbelievable what these 2 young men have pulled off in the last couple of years. It reminds me of
It's
2
great.
other guys I know.
Yep, that's right. Keep it going. Yeah.
So, folks, we want to invite you to go to Barron Lighting Group. That's barronltg.com, Greg Ehrich.
Yeah, the trace light we talked about, which is all the everyday fixtures you need, the Exitronics, every emergency, every exit sign you can think of. And then they have their specialty lines as well. Great company, great people. Check out Barron.
Yeah, great people. And, of course, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. If you have light bulbs in a warehouse, go to naild.org. And special thanks to the hosts of the Lighting Controls podcast, Webster Marsh and Ron Kuszmar. To all you out there listening and watching, thanks for listening.